Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another, albeit a little bit late for those of you guys who are watching us live, another installment of Dark Side, Light Side, where we talk about all things going on in Star Wars and the world of Star Wars. And joining me here, back in his seat, of course, is Kristian Harloff, back from the SEN studio on the other side of LA. How you doing, Kristian?
I'm doing good, man. Just, getting excited to talk about a lot of stuff. I can't believe they were only like a week and a half away. It's pretty crazy from episode 9.
It's funny. I'm hearing, I'm hearing two of you right now, which is kind of weird. So hold on, let me see if I can fix this in a whole thing. So I don't know if there's a reason I'm hearing two of you. Oh, I got it fixed. Can you talk to me again?
How about that? How does that work, John?
Oh, now it works great. Yay, I'm not hearing two of you at all. Okay, so we're back in business here. So listen, guys, here's a fun thing for you guys. We are 1 week away. The next episode of Dark Side, Light Side, I believe both of us, by the time we do the next episode of Dark Side, Light Side, will have seen Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker already. Because there's press screenings on Tuesday morning. For it. And so this is the final episode we have to talk about the upcoming Rise of Skywalker that neither of us have seen it. So this is going to be pretty interesting by the next time we talk. So one of the things we're going to talk about here, guys, before we get to your tweets that you guys had sent in, and then by the way, guys, in hour number 2, we're just going to be taking your live questions. You got 2 options to send in a live question. If you look at the top line of the description of this video, you're going to see a tip link. You can send in a question there, or you can use the super chat feature here on YouTube. Either way is good, and we're going to get to those in hour number 2. But the first stuff we're going to talk about here today is this. This is our last chance to really talk Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, what our expectations are, what we're hoping for, what we're worried about. And Kristian, the way I wanted us to kind of approach this one here today is to talk about this in terms of this. Why people should expect that this movie is going to be great, why we should be optimistic, all the reasons we should have full confidence that this movie is going to blow us out of the water and going to be fantastic, but also to talk about why maybe we should be a little bit pessimistic, the things we're worried about, the things that, are going to keep us up at night and have us waking up in the middle of the night in cold sweats, and where we're at with that. So let me throw it over to you first and ask you this, Kristian, is as we're now in the final countdown, this is our last show before we will have seen this movie. If you're talking to somebody right now and you're needing to explain to them why exactly they should be really optimistic about The Rise of Skywalker, what are you telling them?
Well, I mean, I think that the first thing is it's J.J. Abrams returning to continue the story that he set out to make in episode 7. And I would start by talking to that person saying, well, did you like episode 7? If that person said, no, not at all, I didn't like 7 or 8, I don't like the direction that the new Disney trilogy is going at all, and I don't know if I could be optimistic about this, I would say, well, the other thing to do is look at what they've done so far in these trailers and look at the way that they have almost blended in to the old school, whether it's the prequels, whether it's the some of the themes that we've seen before, bringing back the Emperor. They're definitely going after, and I always say this in a positive way, and it can be used negatively, but fan service. I think fan service can be used in a way that makes fans go, okay. Fan service in general, that term is a positive thing, and I think this will be that movie. Now, you want to stick with the positive? You want to talk about the negative also?
Let's stick to the positive for now. Okay. Because I'm going kind of the same route as you on this, as far as the primary reason I'm telling people to stay positive, why I think we can expect great things, is because I know more so than you, but I loved The Force Awakens. I
like it a lot.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I remember it's one of those experiences to me where I remember, like, Schnepp and I even would once in a while in the afternoons when we had a couple hours before our next thing, we'd walk across the street to the AMC Burbank 16, go in and watch it again. Those were the glorious days that we had those AMC cards that we could just walk in anytime we wanted. Those were good days.
Love those things.
I love that thing, and I love the imagination JJ brought to it, and I love the sensibilities he had with it. Not on the same level as the original trilogy to me, don't get me wrong, but I love that. And him coming back in, Kathleen Kennedy has showed a propensity that when something goes south, she falls back to something that's a little more safe. And sometimes there's good things. Things went wrong with Lord and Miller. And apparently we lost Kristian. I'm sure he'll reconnect here. Things went south with Lord and Miller. So what did Kathleen Kennedy do? She fell back to something that she knew, that she had a close relationship with. She went in with Ron Howard. Things went south with Trevorrow on trying to do episode 9. So what did she do? She went back to what worked before, and she went back to J.J. Abrams. And I think doing this thing with J.J. Abrams at the helm is going to be a big, big plus for this movie. So that's my biggest reason why I would tell somebody to have a lot of confidence that this thing's going to work and probably work well. Number 2 is I love the notion, love the notion that Palpatine is back. Palpatine, I mean, aside from Vader himself, Palpatine is basically the ultimate bad guy. He's the ultimate guy other than Vader in the Star Wars universe. And of course, he's Vader's big thing. So when you were at Star Wars Celebration and they played the first Rise of Skywalker trailer, like for the very first time, the Rise of Skywalker trailer played. And then the lights came up and we heard the Emperor's voice. You heard the Emperor's voice. And then all of a sudden, the lights come back up. At least the Emperor's cackle, the laugh in the trailer. The lights come up. And there on stage is Ian McDiarmid. And of course, in that voice, in the Emperor's voice, run it again. And they played it again and all that kind of stuff. It was, that sent a shockwave of excitement through, I believe, the Star Wars fandom that we haven't felt since that Force Awakens trailer where we saw Han Solo on screen and say, Chewie, we're home. Like, because you guys remember that, like when that trailer happened and we had Han Solo there, we had Harrison Ford coming on and say, Chewie, we're home. And it opened that up. That was something, like that was an excitement level you couldn't even measure. When the Rise of Skywalker trailer happened and it comes up and we see it's Palpatine and all that kind of stuff, I just felt that shake. You know what I mean? I felt that absolute shake. And then, so bringing in this beloved villain from the original trilogy, I think is going to go a long way. And that's another big reason why I see this working out really well. The third reason why I think we can expect really, really great things from all this is I believe, look, when you look back, whether you're somebody that really loved The Last Jedi, whether you're somebody that was a little bit in the middle of the road, or whether you're somebody that really disliked The Last Jedi, regardless of where you fall on that whole spectrum, it's safe for all of us to say that The Last Jedi was divisive. It's fair to say that. It was a divisive film. Many people really liked it. A lot of people didn't like it. So there you have it. I believe coming out of an experience like that, because they got a lot of love for The Force Awakens and they got a lot of love for Rogue One and whatnot. But I believe coming out of that experience with The Last Jedi has given them a little bit of a sense of course correction to get back on course. Now, I'm somebody who liked The Last Jedi. I liked it quite a bit. There are clearly things about it I didn't like, and I've talked about those ad nauseum. But overall, I enjoyed the film. A number of people didn't. But I think the fact that they had what is very rare in the Star Wars universe, which is a divisive experience, I mean, the prequels notwithstanding, then it gave them a sense of course correction. So I believe the fact that J.J. Abrams is back, the fact that they're bringing such an iconic villain as the Emperor to come in to finish off the story, which is the appropriate way to do it, and the fact on top of all of that, that you have them coming out of a shaky performance in The Last Jedi to help them course correct. I believe all these things give us good reason to be very optimistic and be very hopeful about what's coming out and why I believe this movie is going to be great. That said, I do believe there are a couple of reasons to keep us up at night. I do believe there's a couple of reasons or a couple of things that can make us shake on our boots a little bit and to be a little bit apprehensive and maybe even worry just a little bit about what the heck is going on with this movie. The first thing is this, is just like this is one of the things that was a cause for optimism, it can be a cause for concern, which is we're coming off of a very divisive film. That can work to your benefit, as in anything in life. You have an element that can work to your benefit, but it can also work to your detriment. Here's the fear that I have. Coming out of The Last Jedi and the divisiveness that it had, I believe that has caused them to want to try to course correct a little bit. And while I believe that course correction is going to set them into a very positive direction, there is the possibility, there is the chance, however unlikely, that their course correction could take them even further off the mark. And instead of steering us back towards where we have more of a unified fan base, maybe the course correction they takes us in a completely another direction where everybody is even more dissatisfied and more grumbling and more upset. And that's a possibility. It's a possibility we have to keep in mind. That could happen. So coming out of the divisiveness of the last film could lead us into a good direction, could lead us into a bad direction. My second worry is this, and I've expressed this on the show before, but it bears repeating here. My second worry is that we're going to end up with, by the way, Kristian Harloff got, he's having trouble reconnecting. Hold a second. I'll send a new link. Okay. So the second problem, of course, that I have expressed before is the fact that they have been promising in their marketing. Palpatine, right? We just talked. That's one of the reasons why I'm excited, is because Palpatine's coming back. And in their marketing, they have gone Palpatine heavy. When they showed the first trailer, they had it with him cackling, and the only guy on stage after the trailer played was who? It was Ian McDiarmid, the Emperor. Then the first poster comes out. And what do we get in our first poster? A big giant head of Palpatine with a tiny little Rey and a tiny little Kylo on the bottom fighting with their lightsabers, with this whole ominous saying of the Emperor overshadowing everything. So they did that. Then they put out what they called their final trailer, and is being narrated by the Emperor. And so my fear leading into something like this is the notion and the worry that we could end up with something where the Emperor's in it for like 5 or 10 minutes. The Emperor's there for a couple of minutes, like, hello, everybody. Oh, I'm the bad guy. Now I'm dead. And then he's gone. And that's one of the things that really worries me about this. So that's two. One, that they course correct in the wrong direction. Two, they fall empty on the promise of Palpatine and really shortchange Palpatine, thus shortchanging us, the audience. That's my second fear. My third fear about this, and the way that would keep me up at night a little bit worried, is that while trying to be the final chapter, they spend too much time on new characters. And by new, I don't mean Rey, Poe, and Finn. They are the characters of this new trilogy. That's fine. But we already know there are several new characters coming into this episode. Kerry Russell's one of them. We have a few others along the way as well, who are all on stage at Star Wars Celebration. So one of the things that I would be a little bit worried about, if I'm going to be honest with you, is the notion that they spend, 35 minutes of screen time on these, at best, secondary characters that really probably shouldn't be there at all. And if that's the case, then it's going to be a problem. It's actually going to be a real problem. So I believe there are a bunch of reasons to both be hopeful and to be a little bit wary, a little bit nervous, if you will, about what direction they could be going with this whole thing, who the main players are going to be, what, if anything, is going to be the deciding factor between what is great and what is good in this movie and what is not, and how it all goes terribly wrong. So that's kind of my thoughts on all that. Now, speaking of going terribly wrong, we have not been able to get Kristian Harloff back. Today was the first day, and Kristian, I need to apologize for this. We did plan to do a tech run through much earlier in the day, but some things came up and he wasn't able to do that. It was totally not his fault. And so we kind of just raced at the last second to try to get this put together. And unfortunately, it seems like we should have put this thing through some more tech paces, and it's not working out. So unfortunately, it looks like Kristian Harloff is not going to be joining us for the rest of the show, unfortunately. So our bad on that. We apologize. We will 100% make sure that this does not happen again. We will 100% make sure that this doesn't happen again. Again, it was the first time ever that Kristian was trying to come in this way. We didn't have enough time to put it through its paces properly, so I do apologize for that. But we'll make sure that this doesn't happen again. But that said, we still have some things to get to here. So let's move on from that. Okay, so guys, we decided to take some questions from you guys via Twitter. And you guys did send in a number of issues via Twitter. So let's jump over there and start taking those right now. And the first issue that came in from Twitter from you guys came to us from Amin Designs, who writes, now that we are past the halfway point of The Mandalorian, give us your thoughts on the show so far and how it has lived up or not lived up to your expectations. Thanks, and may the Force be with you. Hashtag dark side, light side. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, admin. And yes, we are now, actually, we got 2 episodes left. Just 2 episodes left of The Mandalorian. I believe it's 2 episodes yet. 2 or 3 episodes left. But you're right, we're past the halfway point. How has it met our expectations and how has it failed them? And how are we feeling about it overall? I'll tell you what, for me, overall, I'm feeling great about it. I really am. I'm enjoying this show. We hear sometimes filmmakers and television showrunners saying, our show's going to be this. But then it falls short of that. And it doesn't actually live up to what they were saying it was going to be. And so when John Favreau was coming out and saying things like, this is going to be a Western. This show is going to be the gunslinger in the Old West show. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, sure. It's going to have a couple of little things that are elements of a Western, but it won't really feel like a Western. And he has delivered. He has absolutely delivered. And that whole idea of these adventures of a lone gunman in the outer territories, it's just had a great feel to me. And I've loved that. And of course, this thing only works if you get attached to the main central character. And that's, of course, the Mandalorian, or Mando, as they've been calling him. And he's been working great. By the way, did you guys see that story that we were talking about earlier today on the John Campea Show? That, as it turns out, not only is it not always Pedro Pascal in the Mandalorian suit, it's rarely Pedro Pascal in the Mandalorian suit. Bryce Dallas Howard was saying for her entire episode that she directed, which was episode 4, Sanctuary, she never got to work with him once. He wasn't there. She shot her entire episode of Mandalorian and it was never Pedro Pascal in the outfit. So that was I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit disillusioned about that. When that kind of came up. So it hasn't been him in the outfit very much. So that puts that there. But still, it gives us a great central character. It's given us a great concept of a story. He finds this baby creature of the same species of Yoda. What the hell? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the opening of The Bourne Identity, where the movie opens with a ship in the middle of the ocean and there's some guy just floating in the middle of the ocean. It's like, wait, what's the story with this? Mando comes across as Baby Yoda. What is the story with this? Great premise, great central character, the old Western feel. It's delivering on all that. And when there's action, it's a lot of fun. It's also throwing just the right amount of little references until episode 5, but we'll get to that in a second. It throws in just the right amount of little references here and there to make it feel like Star Wars. And I've really been loving it on that level. On the negative side is that, number one, and I've come to peace with this and I'm okay with it now, but at first the runtime of Mandalorian was jarring to me. Now, in Lucasfilm's defense, Lucasfilm, Kathy Kennedy, John Favreau, Dave Filoni, none of them ever said these are going to be hour-long episodes, right? They never said that. So it's not like they lied to us. They never said it was going to be that long. It's just that myself, and I think a lot of you guys as well, I think we had an expectation in our head. I think we had an idea about how long this was going to be. And it was we all probably thought it was going to be like hour-long episodes. So, like I said, I've come to peace with it. I think the pacing of the show is very, very good. Even at 35, 40 minutes long, it's working for me. So I'm okay with it. But at first, it was a little bit jarring that happened. I got to admit. Secondly, it's not... Look, I'm going to be very unpopular for saying this, and it's unfortunate that Kristian isn't here right now to debate this with me, because Kristian would debate this with me. But I'm going to tell you right now, I was the guy who I've been saying for a long time, Dave Filoni is not ready to direct a Star Wars movie. He's never directed anything live action. The one feature film he directed was a pile of garbage, that Clone War. Come on, even the most hardened defenders of all the animated stuff and prequel stuff, even the most hardened of defenders of all that stuff, realized that Clone Wars movie was an abysmal abomination. And it was. And I said, he's not ready to direct a Star Wars feature film. He's just not. But let him start cutting his teeth on some live action directing, like in a smaller movie or in some TV episodes. So like, I'm the guy going, this is perfect. Dave Filoni directing episodes of Mandalorian is perfect. It's absolutely perfect, because it's going to allow that guy to now start cutting his teeth a little bit on directing some live action stuff that's only going to make him better in the future. This is awesome. I got to say, if I'm being honest, I'm pretty underwhelmed by what's been delivered by Dave Filoni so far. I liked the first episode. And remember, Dave Filoni directed the first episode. And I liked it. I had a few issues with it that I felt were earmarks of a first-time live-action director. But that was fine. We expected those. Overall, I liked the episode. But it is my second least favorite episode out of the 5 we've had so far. What I really disliked, and it's the only episode of Mandalorian that I've disliked so far, is episode 5. The most recent episode, the most useless throwaway episode we've ever had. And it's the first episode that wasn't written by Jon Favreau. This one was written by Dave Filoni and directed by Dave Filoni. And to me, it was a total bust of an episode. Absolutely nothing happened in it. Now, look, you go back to episode 4. They didn't get involved in the main storyline very much, but what did they do in episode 4? They gave us more character development of the Mandalorian himself, more character evolution in the Mandalorian character than they have in all the other episodes combined. They did more evolution in the relationship between the Baby Yoda creature and the Mandalorian than they did in all the other episodes. Because previously, until this episode, and some of you guys might have heard me say this before, prior to episode 4, you could tell that Mando had a sense of obligation and some vague sense of connection to this baby creature, and he's decided he's going to try to protect it. But it's not until we get into episode 4 that turns into a full-fledged affection. There is now affection between these characters. And they play that out throughout the thing. They brought us into a brand new Star Wars environment that we had never seen before, with a village like this and all that kind of stuff. We got a little bit of a hint of original trilogy stuff with the AT-ST. They actually accomplished a lot in that episode that you may have liked or not liked, and that's fine. But they did a lot of important work. They advanced the Mandalorian character. They advanced the dynamic between the relationship. They gave us new environments. They did a lot of stuff, even though they didn't touch on the overarching story. So that was fine. But when we came into episode 5, they literally accomplished nothing. There was no evolution in the Mandalorian's character. There's nothing new or no new revelation or evolution in the Baby Yoda character. It's certainly no brand new environments. Instead, they just went back to the old environments and decided to go for cheap pops. Oh, look, everybody, it's Tatooine. And oh, look, they're landing at Mos Eisley. And oh, look, he's in the same spaceport as the Millennium Falcon was in. And oh, look, Mando's going to the same bar that they visited in the first Star Wars. And oh, look, he referenced Dune Sea. And oh, look, everybody, it's Tusken Raiders. And oh, look, everybody, she says carbon scoring, just like Luke said carbon scoring. And it was like just all pathetic fan service. And fan service can be good if done the right way, like Endgame did it. But there was no character development, no character evolution, no expansion of the backgrounds, no new environments, no anything. It was simply an episode, which started off great, by the way, with the little space battle. I like that. So give credit where it's due. I thought that was really good. But other than that, it was a total waste. It was a total waste of an episode. It was literally an episode that if you skipped the episode and went right to the next one, you're not missing a thing. But John, you might say, the boots at the end. Yeah, okay, I get it. There was like a 5-second shot of something. Are you telling me the whole 36-minute episode was to set up the shot of the boots? That's it? You could have thrown that into any episode, anywhere, anytime, in any way. It wouldn't have mattered. So I got to tell you, while I'm thrilled with the show overall, the one drawback to me and where my expectations have not been met, because I really thought Dave Filoni would tackle this thing and really start to excel. Instead, to me, the episodes he's directed have been the weakest, and the episode that he wrote and directed was the only truly bad episode of Mandalorian so far. So we're going into episode 6. We're heading into the home stretch now, and we'll see how it all goes. Overall, though, I'm very happy with Mandalorian overall. And I'm excited to see where things go. So that's just my kind of thought on that. Question is, what do you guys think about so far? I'm sure a lot of you guys don't feel as harshly about episode 5 as I do, but I'm just telling you how I feel about it. It's honestly how I feel. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know what you think. All right. With that down, let's go on to the next tweet that we selected from you guys. And the next tweet came from Connor Race, who writes in, where are we at? Who do you think is more likely to kill Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker, Rey or Kylo? Also, how did Mace die? I miss this part. He got thrown out the window. Ha ha. Well done, Connor. Well done. All right. Thanks a lot for that. So who is more likely to kill Palpatine in the Rise of Skywalker? You know what? I should have put this up as a Twitter poll. I should have put this up as a poll on Twitter to gauge what you guys think about this. So I'll give you my thoughts on it, regardless, one way or the other. The big question is, Kylo or Rey, which one of them ends the Emperor? Because it's got to be one of them, right? Well, I think the argument for Rey is that you can make the argument that this new trilogy is about the journey of Rey. I mean, you could say that the prequel trilogy was about the journey of Anakin Skywalker, the original trilogy was the journey of Luke Skywalker, and that the final trilogy is about the journey of Rey. So there's a strong argument to be made there for Rey. However, there's also an argument to be made for Kylo Ren. If they're going on a path of a redemption arc for Kylo, which I don't think they are, and I really hope they're not. They very well could be, though. They very well could be. I just hope they don't, for all the reasons I've explained before. But if they do decide to go on some kind of a redemption arc for Kylo Ren, then what's the ultimate thing for that? Well, for Anakin Skywalker, his ultimate act of redemption was stopping Palpatine. Maybe for Kylo Ren, it's the same thing. Just like his grandfather before him, his act of redemption is stopping Emperor Palpatine again. Could be, maybe, I hope not, but that's possible. It also could be that Kylo Ren takes out the Emperor simply because he sees the Emperor as a competitor for his ultimate dominion. Kylo Ren now seeks all the power in the universe, and he may see the Emperor as just another obstacle in his way to achieve his goals. So there could be a good reason for him to want to defeat Palpatine, which I hope they don't do. And there could be an evil motivation for him wanting to stop Palpatine, depending on what it is he wants to do. So who is more likely to kill him? Rey or Kylo? Neither. I'm thinking it's going to be Luke Skywalker. I don't know how, but I'm thinking it's going to be Luke Skywalker. I think Luke Skywalker, whether it's as a Force ghost, a new corporeal form, or whether he never died in the first place, which we know he did, but I don't know. I'm just being hopeful. Keep my fingers crossed, but no, we all know he died. But in whichever way you want to cut it, I think somehow, some way, it's going to be Luke that ends the Emperor. I don't know how. I don't know how they're going to pull it off. I don't know what mechanisms and narrative twists they're going to have to put into play that makes that even a possibility. All I'm saying is I'm going to put my $2 on Luke's the one to do. So I'm going to introduce a third entry here. You got Kylo, you got Rey, but I'm going to say there's Luke as well. And I'm actually putting my $2 on Luke. So the question is, guys, who do you think ultimately takes out Palpatine? And I guess we should say there's a fourth option. There's a fourth option. The Emperor wins. I mean, I don't see J.J. Abrams doing something like that, but I suppose that's a fourth option. So, guys, what do you think? Who do you think offs Palpatine? Is it Kylo? Is it Rey? Is it Luke? Or does Palpatine win? Or is there a fifth option too that I'm not even considering? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. Final question today. The final tweet today that we're going to get from you guys comes into us from Amy Berg, who writes, John Boyega said we wouldn't see him on Disney Plus. But do you think he would change his mind if he, like Ewan McGregor, got his own show? All right, thanks for sending that in. And listen, we talked about this particular topic on the John Campea Show a few days ago. And let me reiterate some, in case you guys weren't there for that, let me reiterate some of my thoughts on this. For those of you who don't know the story at all, John Boyega was doing an interview for The Rise of Skywalker. And he was asked, hey, could, moving forward with the Obi-Wan show coming and The Mandalorian being such a hit, do you think you could we see Finn in a Disney Plus show? To which John Boyega said, you ain't gonna Disney Plus me. I'll stick to the feature films. I ain't going on Disney Plus. Now, let me say a couple things here. Number one, John Boyega is an infectiously likable guy. I've had the opportunity to meet him and be around him on a couple of occasions. Kristian Harloff even sat down and did a one-on-one interview with him before. He is an infectiously positive, likable guy. He is also a very grateful guy. I never get the sense from John Boyega that he doesn't and isn't overwhelmed with a sense of gratefulness of the fact that he's able to be in Star Wars and be a part of Star Wars and all that and what it's done for him and in his career and all. He's a very grateful guy. That doesn't change the fact that what he said was really infinitely stupid. Now, let's face it. You say some stupid things sometimes. Probably often you don't mean to, but it comes across as stupid. I, well-intentioned or not, sometimes say really stupid things. We all do. We all do. And I don't think John Boyega meant anything negative or insulting or offensive by saying that. I don't think he just realized how it was coming across. Because as Erin Cummings pointed out on our show, and she's an actress herself, she goes, when you say you ain't gonna Disney Plus me, I'm a feature film guy. How insulting is that to Ewan McGregor, who has just announced to the world, I'm about to do a Disney Plus show with my Obi-Wan character. And then you come out and say, why you ain't getting a Disney Plus me, I'm a feature film guy. You just basically spit in Ewan McGregor's face. I don't believe that was John Boyega's intention at all, by the way. I don't believe that was his intention. But he's got to understand as he steps back and looks at the scenario, he's got to understand that's how he came across. And he needs to correct that. You're spitting in the face of Pedro Pascal and the work of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and everybody else who's working on The Mandalorian right now. And you're kind of spitting in the face of all the fans of Mandalorian who have been watching that show and loving it, even as though it's this second-class citizen Disney Plus show. You ain't going to Disney Plus me. I'm a feature film guy. I'll stick to the feature films. So what are you saying about the audiences who love the Disney Plus stuff? What are you saying to the actors and performers and directors and producers who are pouring their hearts and soul into this Disney Plus stuff that audiences around the world are loving? What are you saying to them by saying it that way? Again, I don't believe for one split second that John Boyega meant any offense by it. I don't believe that in the least. But I think he's got to learn a lesson that is how it came across, and he's got to kind of course correct how he communicates stuff. Because listen, when you're in the position of a John Boyega, you got to be careful of how you communicate things, right? You got to be very cautious about how you communicate things. All right, to Amy Berg's question, though. Do I think that John Boyega would take it if they offered him a standalone Finn show? And honestly, when I go back and look at the interview, it seems pretty clear-cut that he would not. For whatever reason, innocent or not, John Boyega seems to have no interest in doing a Disney Plus show. And that's fine. It's totally fine. If you as an actor, hey, I don't want to do, beer commercials. It pays good money, all that kind of stuff. But as an actor, I don't want to do beer commercials. That's fine. That's fair. As long as you're not insulting other actors who do engage in beer commercials, then that's fine. It's not for you. You don't want to do it. That's fine. Boyega says, you know what? I'm not interested in getting plugged into a series on Disney Plus or whatever. I'm more comfortable doing feature films. That's my comfort zone. That's where I like to be. That's totally fair and totally fine. So to be honest, Amy, when I read and look at Boyega's comments, it seems to me pretty clear that that's a no. That's a hard no on whether or not we could see him actually getting into and maybe doing a Disney Plus show, even if offered his own Finn show. So that's how I see it. Question is, guys, what do you guys think? Do you think John Boyega could maybe pull a U-turn on this and maybe go the route of doing a show like a standalone Disney Plus show with Finn? Maybe yes, maybe no. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know what you guys think. All right, guys. That's it for all of our pre-set questions and topics that we had here for today. So now let's spend the rest of the time and go over and start taking your live questions that you guys have been firing in to talk about on the show. So we're going to get things started here with Logan James Kynaston, who writes. And he writes, one of two. I was watching an interview with Stephen Merchant, and he wants to make another biopic. This time, he wants to make one about the Star Wars universe, about David Prowse acting as Darth Vader, then finding out at the premiere that he had been dubbed by James Earl Jones. Do you two know anything about the truth behind that? Thanks, guys. Well, first of all, Logan, I believe the one that he did, I believe Stephen Merchant, the one that he did already, was saying, what biopic did he do? He did that movie Fighting With My Family about Paige, the WWE wrestler. And by the way, I know a lot of you guys didn't watch that movie because maybe you're not into wrestling, or maybe the trailers didn't look all that great, whatever. I am telling you, this Fighting With My Family movie is fan-frickin-tastic. It's really entertaining. It's got heart. It's got great laughs. And it's very interesting. On top of all that, if you have not seen that film, I highly recommend you go and check that out. Now, regarding the thing with David Prowse, I don't know that you can make a biopic around one incident, but, yeah, from what I understood, and I could be wrong about this, and this is one of the many times I wish Kristian was here, because I think he's got a different perspective on this, knows a little bit more about this issue than I do. But, you know, my understanding was David Prowse was performing Vader, I believe, and he was under the impression that it was going to be him and his voice in the movie as Vader, which is preposterous when you watch some of the old footage on YouTube of David Prowse, like actually filming, and you hear David Prowse saying the lines, and that there ain't nothing menacing about that voice. There was nothing menacing about it, right? So I think we all agree that they made the right move going to James Earl Jones. They made the right move going to James Earl Jones to do that. So there's that. The exact nature, and I remember there was a falling out then between Prowse and Lucas, and he was upset and all kinds of stuff, but I don't know I don't remember the exact nature of how and when he found out specifically. It may very well be that it was at the premiere. For whatever reason, I don't have it in my head that it was at the premiere. I thought it was prior to that, but it could have been. But that's like another thing for any of you who, going back to wrestling, for any of you who do follow wrestling, that would be kind of likened unto, a lot of people want a biopic on the Bret Hart Montreal screw job, when Bret Hart was screwed out of the title to Shawn Michaels in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, because the WWE knew that Bret Hart was leaving the WWE. Bret Hart was supposed to win his last match. It was arranged that he was supposed to win his last match, but they went behind his back, screwed him, and had him lose the match. Anyway, it's if you're interested in all about real life drama, go look up WWE Montreal screw job Bret Hart, and you'll find an incredible story. And this David Prowse situation kind of has a little bit of smell of that. There's a little bit of a smell of that, but anyway, I would go and look into that. Anyway, great topic to bring up, Logan. All right, next up, Third Man 3 writes, I like the prequels, but a lot of these sequel haters now claim that the prequels were amazing. If those movies came out in 2019, do you think the social media would tear them apart worse than the sequel trilogy? Yes. But listen, Third Man 3, all film is subjective. Just because I don't like the prequels, and just because you maybe don't like well, you saying you do, but just because there are other people who don't like, doesn't mean that other people can't look at the prequels and really love them. Like, that's what I say. Look, whenever anybody wants to ask me about the prequels and my thoughts on the prequels, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you, I don't like the prequels. I think they're bad. You know, I think they did a lot of damage, but whatever. That's just me. What you will never see me doing is trying to talk somebody out of enjoying the prequels. That's the thing about art, man. We all look at art, and this includes Star Wars movies. We all look at art, and it hits us in very unique ways. We're all different individuals, and so the art we experience will affect us in different ways and elicit a different response from us in different ways. So I can watch one movie and it makes me feel great. Somebody else can watch the same movie and it makes them angry. I can listen to a joke and I don't laugh at all, but the guy beside me can hear the exact same joke and it makes him laugh hilariously. Neither of us are right or wrong. It's just that's the subjective nature of film. I hate the prequels, but we shouldn't act in awe and amazement that there are some people who saw the prequels. They love the prequels. It got a great reaction out of them. They identified with the prequels, and to them, the prequels are better than, say, the new movies now. Some people even think that the prequels are better than the original trilogy. I don't agree, but that's how it struck them. Now, do I believe, if you're asking me directly, do I believe if the prequels came out in 2019 that they would be torn apart? Oh yeah, they would be shredded. Yeah. And I think there are some people today defending the prequels that would probably shred them even more harshly. I do believe they would just be annihilated. They would be, yeah, that's what I think. But you don't have to agree, and that's perfectly fine, and we can still all be Star Wars fans together. That's the beautiful thing about it. All right, thanks for sending that in, Third Man. All right, next up. Burke writes, one of two. This is a question for John Campea Show. We'll get back to that one a little bit later. All right. Chris, the Morich man, writes, since Luke wasn't strong enough to defeat the Emperor in Return of the Jedi, would you be disappointed or angry if Rey defeats the Emperor all by herself in The Rise of Skywalker? Do you think that would diminish Luke in any way? Hashtag dark side, light side. No. I don't think it would diminish Luke in any way because it all depends on what the circumstances are, right? Like you just gave 2 bits of information, but to completely understand a circumstance, we need about 2,000 bits of information. So for instance, number 1, the Emperor's here, but is he as strong and as powerful as he was in the age of Return of the Jedi? Is he only half as powerful as he was before? Is he stronger than he was before? Is he exactly the same as he was before? Is he a mere shadow of what he was before? I mean, so we need to know that's important. Number 2, how does this story portray the Force working within Rey? And is the Force starting to manifest itself in a lot more ways in Rey? How do they set that up? Has Rey gone through some profound experiences in the past year interacting with the Jedi texts? Maybe. Is she just the exact same person she was that we left at the end of The Last Jedi? I mean, all these things come into play. So if we have an Emperor who is just as strong or stronger than he was in The Return of the Jedi, and we have Rey, who's made no advancement since The Last Jedi, and the two of them just confront, and the Emperor dies as a result of the confrontation, yeah, that raises questions. I'm not going to lie, that raises questions. However, there's a bunch of other circumstances that could completely alter the way we view that, right? So I'll give you a minor spoiler about what happens in last night's episode of Crisis on Infinite Earths, okay? So I'm giving you advance warning here. You can mute your computers if you want. I'm giving you advance warning. Minor spoiler about something that happens in the Crisis on Infinite Earths episode last night. Something I didn't watch earlier, but I got talked into watching anyway. There was a lot of people writing to me saying that Batman, because I hate the way they make Superman job. It's a wrestling term, by the way. They make Superman a jobber to Supergirl in the Supergirl show. It disgusts me. I got a message that in last night's episode of Crisis, this is before I saw it, saying now Batman jobs to Batwoman. That infuriated me. But then I watched the episode today. Because I thought I got so many people asking me about it, I should at least watch it. So I watched the episode today. And yes, Batwoman defeated Batman. But there were a lot of questionable circumstances. Number 1, it was a much older Batman because she went to an Earth that was a few more years advanced than our Earth. So he was a much older guy. Number 2, he was practically crippled from his years of battle and fighting, and he was having to wear this exoskeleton suit that for him to even walk, and he could barely move in it. Understanding all those circumstances, that's different than seeing the Dark Knight in his prime showing up and then fighting Batwoman and Batwoman defeating him. That's different than what this was. So I would say if you apply that principle to this whole question about the Emperor and Rey, it really all depends on how they set him up. If he's half the man he was, and she's developed a lot over the past year, and this movie sets up about how she made some leaps and bounds with the Jedi techs and maybe training from Ghost Yoda or Ghost Luke or whatever, and the Force is just really manifesting in her to balance out the rise of the dark side of the Force in Kylo Ren, then maybe that works. If they do it badly, then it doesn't work. So it really all depends on the circumstances. All right, we move on here to Farlow, who writes, in Rebels, I noticed that when Palpatine addresses the people on the HoloNet, his face is normal. Could he be using Force projection in Rebels as well as the prequel trilogy to gain trust and power? All right, so just let me read that through one more time. In Rebels, I noticed that when Palpatine addresses the people on the HoloNet, his face is normal. Could he be using Force projection in Rebels as well as the prequel trilogy to gain trust and power? In the prequel trilogy? But remember, he's in the prequel era up until the end of the prequels. Because remember, the Rebels era is different than the prequel trilogy era, right? In the prequel trilogy era, which is separated by a lot of years from when Rebels takes place, in the prequel trilogy, the Emperor Palpatine still just looks like regular old Senator Palpatine, right? It's not until the end of Revenge of the Sith that he actually has his face deformed in the fight with Mace Windu. So that we don't need to worry about. As far as him in Rebels, I have to go back and look again, but I don't remember him just looking like normal Senator Palpatine. Because remember, Palpatine, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, he gets up publicly in the Senate with his face deformed, and he even uses the deformation of his face as an emotional hook to get sympathy. Oh, look at what the Jedi did to me. Oh, remember? He stood up publicly and did that. So again, maybe I'm not remembering Rebels properly, but I don't remember seeing Rebels and going, oh, Senator Palpatine's made himself look like he just did before the events of the fight with Windu. So I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that again. It's a really interesting thing to ask, Farlow, but I'd have to go back and look at Rebels again. If you guys have a thought on that, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Please jump in the comment section below and let us know what you think about what Farlow's bringing up. All right. Toby Thrawn writes, I'm watching The Force Awakens and I love that movie. Was disappointed when I first saw it, but liked it more with every time I saw it. Unlike Last Jedi, which I loved at first, but I'm torn about it now. Gives me hope for Rise of Skywalker. # in JJ we trust. And I'm kind of like you in the way that I remember the first night that I saw The Force Awakens for the first time. I really enjoyed it. But I'd fall short of saying, oh my God, I love this movie. But I really enjoyed it. I was happy with it. I was solidly happy with it. But like your experience, Toby, the more I saw it, going to see it myself or going to see it with Schnepp a lot of times, I just liked it more and more every time I saw it. Every time I saw it, I liked it more and more. With The Last Jedi, for those of you who follow me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter simply at John Campea or on Instagram at John Campea. If you guys follow me and were following me, 2 years ago when The Last Jedi came out, you remember that the very first thing I tweeted, the very first thing I wrote when I stepped out of the theater having watched The Last Jedi for the first time was about the things I didn't like. It was the very first thing I tweeted. I was, hated this casino planet. I thought Benicio del Toro's character was a complete waste. And I didn't like the direction they took, unfortunately, because I really like the Finn character, but I didn't like the direction they took Finn and Rose and what direction they sent them in. Other than that, I'm happy with it. I liked it. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. But so the very first thing I did. Now, the more times I've watched The Last Jedi since, I feel neither better nor worse about it. I still feel exactly the same. I still personally feel exactly the same. I've got issues with the movie, but overall I liked it. It's my least favorite of all the new movies. So like, for me, the original trilogy is way up here. The original trilogy is way ahead of everything else. And then you got The Force Awakens. Then for me, Rogue One, then Solo, and then The Last Jedi. Like it. Still do. Like it quite a bit. I can watch it all the time, but still have my issues with it at the same time. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But I agree. Seeing what JJ did with that first one gives me a lot of hope for this next one. So here's hoping it kind of holds true. All right. Let's see. Brian, that's again for the John Campea Show. Let's see. Alberto E. writes, have you seen the documentary No, I have not. Have you seen the documentary I Am Your Father about David Prowse and his fallout with Lucas? If so, where do you guys stand on this situation? Again, I know about the situation. I don't know all the details about it. I know I read a big article on it a number of years ago. And I just remember not thinking very much about it and saying, it is what it is. And honestly, the article I read about it, and the article could be biased one way or the other. It didn't paint David Prowse in a very good light. The article that I read. Now, maybe if somebody else was telling the story, maybe it comes across a little bit differently. But this goes directly, Alberto, to what was asked a little bit earlier about how would we feel about seeing a biography or biopic about this incident and how it turned out. But no, I've never watched I Am Your Father. So there's that. All right. Kenneth Colton writes, hey, Gio and Kristian, with Palpatine's added voice in multiple new clips, what do you think the percentage-wise is that his screen time will be? Long have I waited. See, that right there, Kenneth, is the billion-dollar question. That's the billion-dollar question right now. How much Palpatine are we getting here? Because to me, as I said earlier, with all my fears about this thing, and there he is. There he is right down there. That whole poster was just his big face, his big evil face. By the way, that's Anne's favorite Star Wars character of all time, is Palpatine. They better not just have this come out where he's in like 10 minutes of the movie, or he doesn't show up until halfway through the third act of the film. They just better not. I'm going to put my bets on 20%. Now, that may sound like a small number. 20% is a good chunk of a film. All right, that's a good chunk of a film. That's like, probably close to a half-hour screen time. If I get in here and Palpatine has close to a half-hour screen time or more, I'm satisfied. Less than that, it gets iffy. So, Kenneth, my percentage aim right now is probably around the 20% mark. Somewhere around the 20% mark. All right. Carlos Sosa just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Carlos. Let's see here. Jake Walsh writes, I am worried that the Emperor explaining how he returned might be a typical bad guy explains his evil plan scene. How do you think it will be handled? Well, it can be handled very simply. Like, I've heard some people say, you need another movie to explain how the Emperor's there. And I'm like, no, you don't. All you need is a 30-second explanation scene where when Vader betrayed me, this, then that, then I did this, and lo, I am here. There, done. Done. I remember this great scene in X-Men 2. I believe it's X-Men 2. Yeah, X-Men 2. This great scene in X-Men 2 where I believe it's Kitty Pryde and Bobby, Iceman, and Pyro go to Bobby's house to hang out, right? And in this scene, Pyro is walking through the house with Bobby and Kitty, and he catches a glimpse of Bobby's family. Oh no, it was with him were they with Rogue or Kitty Pryde? I can't remember now. Anyway, he looks on the wall and there's a family portrait of Bobby with his family, and they all look happy. And it happens in about 2 seconds. But Pyro stops and looks at that picture, and the camera then cuts back to Pyro's face and the look on his face, and then cutting back to the picture in a 2-second shot with no dialogue. We learned so much background about Pyro. right? Because without them needing to say anything, we learned Pyro comes from a background where he does not have a happy family life. And we learned all of that in a 2-second shot with no dialogue. It was brilliant. You can accomplish a lot of storytelling in very little time and with very little dialogue if you do it right. You can tell a lot of story. So we'll see how they kind of describe the Emperor's return, all that kind of stuff. But listen, what they cannot do is not even address why he's back or how he's back. You got to at least address that. Because if you don't, oh my God, people are going to lose their minds. They're going to absolutely lose their minds. All right. Carlos Sosa just sends in another super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Carlos. Let's see. Dylan Trost writes, I've been watching you two, Kristian and I, since the Force Awakens trailer reactions. Wow, it's going back a bit. So happy to close it out with you two together again. It's almost as important to me as the movie. Yeah, well, we're not together today now, again, because of tech issues. Again, we won't ever let that happen again. Don't worry, guys. We'll get that fixed. Today was some unusual and unfortunate circumstances that unfortunately kind of sabotaged us, but we'll be up and running again. Don't you worry about that. All I can say, Dylan, is thank you so much for following both Kristian and myself for that long. And thank you for coming through as we cross this end line. And by the way, even as we cross the finish line, there's a lot more Star Wars to come. So thanks for being a part of it. And thanks for letting us be a part of your fandom as well. So we thank you for that, man. All right, let's move on here. Dylan Trost also writes, over or under 40%. Palpatine uses a lightsaber in episode 9. Now, this is an interesting question because Robert Meyer Burnett and I have a debate about this. He doesn't think Palpatine should. I think he absolutely should. I think we all want to see Palpatine in a lightsaber fight. Except for the love of God, have a stunt double do it for Ian McDiarmid. Don't let Ian McDiarmid do it himself. As Kristian would do. Please have a stunt double for Ian McDiarmid and don't let him do it himself. But I'm going to go over 40%. Not 100%, but I'm going to go over 40% on that. All right, next up. Let's see. Blake writes, have either of you read Master and Apprentice? I'm halfway through and it's pretty good. The guy that reads it on Audible does a great Liam Neeson. Audible does a great job with these Star Wars novels. Thanks, hashtag Dark Side, Light Side. And, last week, Kristian and I both talked about our recommended canon novels and all the books that we read, stuff like that. Master Apprentice is not one that I've read. It's not one that I've read. I believe Kristian has, but it's not one that I've read. But to your point about Audible doing a great job with the Star Wars novels, by the way, Audible doesn't make those. Like Lucasfilm and Random House, I believe, they're the ones who put together. They just put it on Audible. But they do a fantastic job with those audio novels because they make it a full experience. Most audiobooks that I listen to, it's a narrator and they read the book, right? The audiobook, that's what they do. Perfectly fine. Star Wars, these novels go way beyond that. They have sound effects and music and they just make it a full immersive audio experience. They really do a fantastic job with that. And that's one of the reasons why I've listened, I've read a number of them, but I've listened to another number of them as well, including I always listen to the Thrawn novels because I just love the guy's voice who does Thrawn. So I've completed the Thrawn trilogy, but man, they just put so much production into those. So if you have not listened to one of the Audible or I should say one of the Star Wars novels available on Audible, I really recommend it because it's a really good experience. So there's just that. Okay. Next up, Dylan Trost writes, what could The Rise of Skywalker do that would make it more divisive than The Last Jedi? Do you think there is any way this movie reveals Rey as the true chosen one? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. As far as what they could do to make it more divisive, I don't know, bring Jar Jar back, maybe. That would certainly, yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make it divisive because then just everybody hates it if they do that. But yeah, maybe bring Jar Jar back. That could do it. Do I see that they reveal that Rey is the true chosen one? No. You see, I have had this debate and I have yet to hear a valid argument against this. I've been having this debate with a number of people. And again, I've yet to hear a compelling argument for this. There are some people who feel that if the Emperor is back, that means Anakin's sacrifice and saving Luke and all that kind of stuff was all for nothing and all a waste. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Did several decades of peace in the galaxy not happen? I'm sorry, was Luke not saved? And did the rebellion go on to form the New Republic and establish peace throughout the decades forever? What were you looking for? Happily ever after? That's not how life works. You know, the prophecy never said that someone will come and restore balance to the Force forever and ever, and it will never be bad, and everything will be sunshine and rainbows for everybody in the galaxy forever and ever. That was not the prophecy. The prophecy was that somebody's going to come along and they will bring balance to the Force. Vader did that. By throwing down the Emperor, it ended the reign of the Empire, and balance was restored once again to the galaxy. And justice reigned, and for decades we had the New Republic. But it wasn't forever. And eventually, like when Superman beats an enemy, yay, he saved the day. Oh, but wait, there's a new global threat. Does that mean that Superman didn't actually save the day last time? Well, of course he did, but later there's a new threat. Or Lex Luthor returns. Or Doomsday returns, or Brainiac returns, or whatever. They may return. That doesn't undermine what Superman accomplished in a previous issue. That Superman saved the day, he saved the world. Yeah, but did he really? Because now Doomsday's just back again, so did he not really save the world before? No, he did. It's just that now it's a new chapter. And so, no, to me, Anakin was the prophecy. He was the chosen one to bring balance to the Force, and he did it. But it was never going to be forever and ever, amen, happily ever after. That's not the way stories work. And just because now the universe is under threat again many decades later, to me, that in no way, I think it's ridiculous to think in any way that somehow undermines what it was that Anakin accomplished by saving his son, bringing down the Empire, and leading to the establishment of the New Republic. I think to ignore all that is silly. I think it's just silly to ignore all of that. So, but I'll tell you what, Dylan, if they do in Rise of Skywalker make it out to say that Rey is the chosen one, they better do a hell of a lot of explaining in the movie to set up narratively how that makes any sense. They would have to do a hell of a lot of work, or else it would be a massive mistake. So I don't know. We'll have to see. 1 week away from finding out, ladies and gentlemen. We're 1 week away from finding out. All right. Carlos Sosa writes, the score for episode 9 online at Disney Studios Awards. Oh, really? Like the musical score? Oh, okay. Well, everybody, now we all know what we got to do. Disney online at Disney Studio Awards. I didn't know there was such a website. Okay. And the episode 9 score is up there. Hopefully they don't pull a Force Awakens where they put spoilers in the titles of each thing. Liam Neeson's tragic, or Qui-Gon Jinn's tragic end. It's like, what? Like, hopefully they don't give major spoilers away in the titles of the music. All right, let's see. Goose72 writes, J&K, do you think we will see more Force users in Mandalorian? Who, if anyone, would you like to see again on the show as a recurring or main cast? Lastly, Palpatine's first appearance. What was your favorite TV spot? I haven't really been following the TV spots, to be honest with you. Like I follow I follow trailers. I don't always jump up to make sure I watch the TV spots, to be honest. And that's a very loose. I don't even know if we were looking at the Emperor, to be honest with you, in that one TV spot. But no, I don't think we're going to come across any more Force users in Mandalorian. I don't think we will. I'm not saying that I know we won't. I'm just saying I don't think we will. I don't think so, but they could. But right now, I just feel like that's not the type of show this is. It's just not the type of show it is. And, you know, we've got the Baby Yoda character there, but it's a baby. It's not very established in how to, I mean, yeah, it stopped an animal. Okay. So I don't know how far they're going to go with that. But no, I do not think they're going to do another Force user. At least I don't think so. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Nick O writes, what are the chances that Palpatine's return is not explained? Ooh, we were just talking about that. Snoke is taken for granted in The Force Awakens, and they didn't elucidate, I know, I'm probably misreading an easy word, about him in The Last Jedi. Could Could the same thing happen with Palpatine where his presence is simply granted for narrative and expedience? No, because it's a totally different thing. Like, for instance, there was absolutely no narrative imperative to explain where Snoke came from. As in the original trilogy of Star Wars, we never needed to know where the Emperor came from. We didn't need to know how the Emperor came to power. We didn't need to know how the Empire came to be. All we needed to know in the original trilogy was the Emperor was big, he was bad, and he was powerful. That's all we needed to know. For the purposes of the actual narrative, that's all we needed to know. We didn't need to know anything else. With Snoke, I contend the same thing. Snoke's background story is irrelevant to the main narrative of the Star Wars story that's going on. It's absolutely irrelevant. All it would be is anecdotal information. That's not necessary, worth wasting screen time on. I know a lot of people were curious about it, but it wasn't important. It wouldn't add anything to it, right? Other than satisfying some people's curiosity. That was my thought. Now, Palpatine returning. See, Palpatine is an existing character that in the movies you have said Palpatine is gone and down and out and dead and the fall of the Empire and blah, blah, blah. For him to return as a part of that same narrative, you've got to explain that. Because he's already in the narrative. His departure happened in the narrative. For you now to go and say, new twist, he's here, you've got to reveal how that happens. Because that is intricately a part of the narrative of Palpatine in this story. To not address it is going to drive some people ludicrously mad, and I won't blame them. I won't blame them in the least. I won't blame them one little bit. If we get through this entire movie, or as Kristian says, if they ask him, Emperor, how are you back? And he just says, because, as Kristian would say, then yeah, that's going to drive people nuts. And I am not going to blame them one little bit. So I don't see them making that mistake. It's a totally different situation to me than Snoke because you had the departure of Palpatine within this narrative, within the same narrative line. To have him return, you've got to say how. Again, you don't need a 20-minute flashback. It can be a 30-second piece of dialogue. Boom, nice, clean, concise, done. And then you can move on with the story. But you at least got to address it. I think, Nick, they at least have to address it. So whether they do or not, we'll have to kind of wait and see. All right. Matthew Menschik writes, I would like an epic rant video. Oh, this is for me to put up a little bit later. By the way, so Matthew sent in a $50 tip. Anybody who sends in a $50 tip or more, which I don't expect to happen a lot, I put up your own video on the front page of my YouTube channel. So I will get to this one a little bit later, Matthew. So this clearly was not meant for Dark Side, Light Side. All right. Ryan Clearly sent in this. He writes, over under 20%, Sidious is revealed to be Darth Plagueis. Ooh. I've never really considered that as a possibility. It's an interesting take. I will go under 20 because 20 is still kind of high. I think there's a possibility for it, but I would honestly set a possibility like that maybe around 4%. I don't know that I could go nearly as high as 20. So it's an interesting thought, but I'm going to take under 20% on that. Okay. Glenn Shumway writes, Luke falls into a hatch after a long fall in Empire at Cloud City. Could it be as easy as this to explain how Palpatine survives the fall in Jedi? Why can't Palpatine get sucked into a hatch? Well, listen, I'll see your Luke falls down a hatch, and I'll raise you a Darth Maul falls down a large pit after being cut in half by a lightsaber and survives. So, I mean, look, so I don't really know. This could be, there's so many theories about Palpatine right now, about could he be a clone? Maybe. Could he be a reincarnation? Maybe. Could he be, or could it be, as I fell down the chasm, I survived the fall and crawled to my escape shuttle. Seeing my Star Destroyer in ruins, I decided to escape into a desolate world to recoup my strength until my return, or something stupid like that. I don't know. But yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, if Luke can make that great fall and live, and Darth Maul can take that fall after being cut in half by a lightsaber and come back, it's not such a big stretch to imagine the Emperor, who, by the way, is way more powerful than either of those, could be able to do the same thing. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. Well, again, we're only a week away from finding out. All right, Jason Green writes, do you think Mando Season 1 will end on a cliffhanger via delivering baby Gizmo, or Yoda, to New Jedi Temple with possible Luke cameo? Keep up the great work. Love seeing you two legends back together. Oh, thanks a lot for Jason. No, I don't think so. By the way, that wouldn't be a cliffhanger. If it ended with him getting baby Yoda to safety, and let's for argument's sake say it's to Luke Skywalker, then that's not a cliffhanger. That's a definitive ending to the story. That can be picked up later, but a cliffhanger is, Mando is about to hand over baby Yoda to Luke, and all of a sudden 6 Inquisitors who we didn't think were around anymore show up and say, "We'll take that baby." Wahahaha. And then Luke pulls out a lightsaber and they pose off, and then the credits roll. That's a cliffhanger. Do I think they'll end Mandalorian Season 1 on a cliffhanger? I don't think so. I think they'll end it on a satisfying note with plenty of potential doors to open for a sequel. I don't think they went into Mandalorian assuming they're going to do Season 2. I think they knew there was a possibility they could do Mandalorian and maybe nobody was interested in whatever and they just got to close it off. But I think it'll come to a definitive ending while having open doors that could easily lead into a Season 2. But a cliffhanger? I don't think a cliffhanger. I don't think they'll do it with a cliffhanger. At least I don't like seasons ending on a cliffhanger. I don't mind episodes ending on a cliffhanger. I don't even mind mid-season breaks ending on a cliffhanger. I do not like this concept of a season ending on a cliffhanger and giving no sense of satisfaction to the audience. Now they got to wait for a year before seeing it again. So I don't think they'll do that. They might, but I don't think they'll do that. We'll have to wait and see. Thanks for that, Jason. All right. Matt Phillips writes, with Kylo bent on emulating Vader, do you think anyone will finally tell Kylo that Vader eventually redeemed himself in the end and isn't a bad guy? See, I think he knows that. And I was having this discussion with a friend of mine not long ago. I always interpret that he would know the history of it. He would know what happened. But I think he sees that as a moment of weakness that Vader had. But I think he knows. I think he knows. And by the way, I think, Matt, and I could be wrong about this, but I think by the end of The Last Jedi, he's moved past trying to emulate his grandfather. I think he's sick of it, and I think he's done with it. I think he's now moved on to let the past die. I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to conquer the universe. Me, Kylo Ren, I'm the guy. I think he's moved past his obsession with his grandfather. I don't know that, and we could find out in the first 5 minutes of The Rise of Skywalker that I'm very wrong about that. But my interpretation as a fan in The Last Jedi is that Kylo himself has moved past that. He no longer sees it that way. He's no longer just living to try to live up to his grandfather. Let the past die. Kill it if you have to. I think that's where his mindset is right now. So could be wrong. But we'll find out soon enough. All right, thanks for sending that in, man. All right, Taylor Goodson writes and sends in a really large super chat. Thank you, Taylor, for supporting the channel and what we're doing here on that level. Is the workaround to a confrontation between Obi-Wan and Maul/Vader in the Obi-Wan series simply having Obi-Wan leave Tatooine for a time? I have a hard time believing that neither will have at least a presence in the show. All right, thanks for writing that in. Well, see, the problem, those are two different things. An encounter with Maul and an encounter with Vader. The problem with both is not that Ben is on Tatooine. The problem with both is that canon says he doesn't have any more confrontations with them. Let's look at Maul for a second. Darth Maul never even knew Obi-Wan Kenobi was still alive. And in Rebels, which is supposed to be canon, in Rebels, Darth Maul has his own story arc where he discovers and finds out that Obi-Wan Kenobi is still alive and where he is. And he's obsessed with him. And then he goes to Tatooine, finds Obi-Wan, confronts him. They have a 2-second fight. Obi-Wan kills him pretty quickly and pretty easily, and he dies in Obi-Wan's arms. So canon has already stated that it's not the fact that Obi-Wan's on Tatooine, it's the fact that canon already says that he's never seen Obi-Wan again post the events of, Order 66. They've already said that in canon, so you can't really get around that unless they want to break it. And if they want to break it, they break it, but then they're throwing all of canon out the window. The Vader part is an issue that Kristian and I disagree on. And you may fall on Kristian's side of this, you may fall on my side of this. To me, the Vader issue presents the same problem. The clearly implied message in Star Wars A New Hope, the original Star Wars movie, is that Vader and Obi-Wan have not seen each other since the events of Mustafar. Since, the last I saw you, I was the student, now I am the master. And the last time they saw each other, when Anakin was but the student and Obi-Wan was the master, we know now was Mustafar. That was the last time they encountered each other. Kristian will argue, and again, I want to be careful not to misrepresent Kristian's thoughts because he's not here to express his own thoughts, but he will express them more eloquently than I. But to sum it up, Kristian will say that we can play with semantics there. It's like, yes, but in episode 4, Vader doesn't specifically say when I last saw you, we were on Mustafar and I was but the student. No, he doesn't say that. He doesn't. So Kristian's argument is that you could play with the semantics of that to say that maybe they ran into each other again at some other point down the line, and then they haven't seen each other since that point. To me, that's problematic. And it's problematic, number one, because it does violate what I believe to be the clear implied message of Star Wars Episode 4. But also, as a number of you guys have pointed out, there is no way that Anakin Skywalker, after the events and after he becomes Darth Vader, is ever going to say to Obi-Wan, if they met each other again years later, that he still saw himself as the student. No. After the events of Revenge of the Sith, Vader did not see himself as the student anymore. And so any potential confrontation between Obi-Wan and Vader after the events of that, he would never say to Obi-Wan, oh, the last time we saw each other, 3 years ago, I was still a student. No, he wasn't. He would never say that. So, yeah, I think both the Maul and the Vader, and again, it'll be good for Kristian to express his, because Kristian will give a better defense of his position than I can, obviously. So keep that in mind. Take that with a grain of salt. But for me, both the Maul and the Vader scenarios present problems that have nothing to do with the fact that Obi-Wan's on Tatooine. You could still say that Obi-Wan at some point in the Obi-Wan series leaves Tatooine for something that he needs to do, but that's not what gets in the way of him encountering Maul or Vader. It's these other canon problems that prevent him from encountering them. So we'll have to see. Maybe they will just break canon. Maybe they just will. I hope they don't, but we'll have to see. So that's my thoughts on that for now, Taylor. Interesting question, man. All right. Next up, Eric writes, why is it okay to spoil Crisis on Infinite the day after it airs, but shows like Watchmen or The Mandalorian, you ask for a few days? Is it because you like those shows? No, I don't think so. I think part of the thing is, look, I still always give, like when we talk about Mandalorian and stuff like that, shows like, and I will still say, like today, when I talked about the Crisis show, I let you guys know. I'm giving you guys fair warning. You can hit mute on your computer. I'm going to express something here that's about the show last night. You've been warned. So I can do that as well with Watchmen or Mandalorian. But I still think within the first couple of days of those shows airing, you've got to give warnings to each other, including Mandalorian, which, by the way, too, the CW shows, and this is part of their strength, the CW Arrowverse, unlike, say, Mandalorian, or unlike Watchmen, for example, the CW universe they're cheesy, and they're purposely so, and that's part of their charm and part of what makes them work, in my opinion, because I love Flash. I really like Black Lightning. There are times I really like Arrow, but part of that charm and part of what makes them like is they're cheesy and kind of fluff and whatever. Unlike, say, more dramatic shows of Watchmen, which has a blue-skinned godlike creature, I understand that, and Mandalorian, the guy in space armor, I understand that too, but they're taken a little bit more seriously. So, but in both circumstances, I would say I give a warning to people and give them a chance to mute something or to flip away. Let's see. Anonymous writes in and says, could watching The Rise of Skywalker premiere live stream next week potentially spoil the movie? For The Last Jedi, they showed Frank Oz there, and that kind of spoiled Yoda being in it. What if we see Hayden there or others? Should we avoid it? Thank you. Well, listen, true story, Anne almost killed Frank Oz at The Last Jedi. My wife, Anne, almost killed Frank Oz at The Last Jedi premiere last year. And by that, I mean this. Frank Oz was actually wearing a walking boot, and he had a crutch. So clearly he had done something, banged up his leg. But by the way, Frank Oz, if you haven't seen Knives Out, if you haven't seen Knives Out yet, you should totally watch Knives Out. One of the reasons being is that Frank Oz appears in Knives Out. It's awesome seeing him in there. Anyway. So little mixture there. You got Rian Johnson directing it, a Star Wars connection, and you got Frank Oz in it, a little Star Wars connection. But listen, I was there on the carpet, and Anne bumped into him with his bum leg and everything, because neither of them were looking where they were going. They literally bumped into each other. It's like Anne's like, "Oh my God, I almost killed Frank Oz." Anyway, but seeing him there, I just assumed, guess what? Like, Peter Mayhew was there. Peter Mayhew was not in The Last Jedi at all. In The Force Awakens, he did some of the Chewie sitting scenes, but I believe he wasn't in a single shot of Last Jedi. But Peter Mayhew was there. That didn't spoil anything. Frank Oz, who's an intricate part forever with both Disney and with Star Wars. Honestly, I didn't think anything of it. And Hayden Christensen, Hayden Christensen showed up at D23, or at Star Wars Celebration, I should say. And I don't know, but to your point, the X-Men Days of Future Past world premiere happened, and Famke Janssen was there. I never know if I say her name right. And James Marsden were there. And on the red carpet, they posed with the cast. I'm like, oh, well, I guess there's a surprise appearance by Famke Janssen and Cyclops in this thing. And sure enough, they were. And that did spoil it. So you know what? Maybe. I don't think it will, but that was certainly an example of a red carpet experience that spoiled something in the movie. So it's possible, but listen, I actually expect Hayden Christensen to be at this premiere. It is, after all, the final installment of it. And by the way, I bet you I'm willing to put $5 that Harrison Ford will be there. Doesn't mean Harrison Ford's in the movie. I bet you Harrison Ford will be at the premiere. I don't know this for a fact, but that's kind of what I think. So I don't know. It's a good question, Anonymous. It's a good question. I'm going to guess you're fine, but there have been examples where it can spoil something. But I don't think seeing Frank Oz there, again, to me, that didn't reveal that Yoda was in it. I just assumed, oh, it's Frank Oz. He's totally connected to this franchise, and so he's here at the premiere. It turns out it did mean something. I don't know. It's a good question, man. Well, listen, it's just a red carpet event. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. I don't think you're missing out on anything by not watching it. And if you're really nervous about them spoiling something just by somebody's presence on the carpet, maybe you're right. Maybe take a pass on it. It's a good question, though. I hadn't really thought about that. It's an interesting topic. All right. Jared Murray writes, thought on... Oh, so that's another thing. That's for the John Campea Show. I got all these questions mixed in with each other. My apologies, everybody. All right. Nate Piacentino writes, if it isn't Boba Fett, that Spurs SFX is just cruel. Well, there are several possibilities here. There are several possibilities to the character, and I think you might be getting ahead of yourself thinking it's Boba Fett. I really do. But there are a lot of hyper far out there predictions about who that is. All right, Dylan Trost writes, over under 10%, there's a Kylo Ray kiss. See, you said it at 10%, which is super low. 10% is such a low prediction. It's hard to take under 10. Okay, so I'm going to say this. I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't think it's likely. But 10% is so low that I'll take over 10%. Maybe I'll say it's 15% or something like that. So I'll take over 10%. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's likely, but I cannot go under 10%. So I'll take the over action on that. All right. Gary Ritchie writes, your critique of the last show set my bar so low that I didn't think it was that bad. I only really hated Amy Sedaris's character. Yeah, I wasn't thrilled about that character either. It reminded me a lot. You know what other character I've hated in this show? The very first alien bounty that Mando gets at the beginning of episode 1. Hey, I got money. Yuck, yuck, yuck. I'm like, oh my God, please tell me this character isn't going to be in the show very long. Please, 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 please. The way this character acted was kind of reminded me of that. I didn't like it either. I just thought it was a waste. I mean, that's it. But listen, a buddy of mine really liked episode 5. And just because I don't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't like it. I mean, if you watch it and liked it, that's awesome. But, to me, it was the one episode so far that I just straight up didn't like. And hopefully that'll be the only one that I straight up don't like. But just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't. But I've had the same thing happen to me, Gary. I've had some movies or television shows where people set the bar so low that for instance, here's a good example. X-Men, Dark Phoenix. I had heard such terrible things about the movie that when I finally went to go see it, and I saw it before it opened wide, but when I went to go see it, I had already heard such terrible things about it and all this was going to be a disaster and it's the most awful thing ever and blah, 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 blah. That when I went to go see it, I actually came out and went, I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, it's not good, but I didn't think it was that bad. It actually had some redeeming things about it. As a matter of fact, that entire final sequence, that whole sequence in the third act of the film with the train scene is one of the top 10, I think, greatest action sequences in the history of comic book movies. I thought it was pretty terrific. So overall, yeah, the movie's not, but my expectations were set so low that it actually worked to my benefit going in to watch the movie. So, there's that. All right. A fan of Peanuts writes, I really would love if Rey sacrificed herself. Cry time for me. They would never do that, though. I think it would be surprising and powerful. I love her. See, I think that would be an interesting direction for them to go. The one thing that leads me to think that they wouldn't do that is that Kathy Kennedy has suggested in the past, although it is a couple of years ago that she said this and plans change. Kathy Kennedy said at one point in the past that they had plans for more stories to be told about with Rey, but she also said with Finn and Poe as well after the events of episode 9. But plans change. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I think that could be some very, very dramatically interesting, fan of Peanuts, but I think you're right. I don't see them doing that. But man, wouldn't it catch us by surprise if they did? That would catch a lot of us by surprise if they did. Anyway, Fan of Peanuts also writes, Last Jedi is one of my favorite movies for so many reasons. I respect the hell out of Ryan for being so bold. Most worked for me, and it kept me guessing. And that's the beauty of movies, man. That's the beauty of movies. And you're not alone. There's a lot of people watching this show right now that really, really like The Last Jedi. And there's a lot of people watching the show right now who really didn't like The Last Jedi. But that's the beauty of movies, is that it's art and we all experience it in different ways. And I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. I'm super glad you enjoyed it. Here's hoping that you enjoy The Rise of Skywalker just as much and that we all like The Rise of Skywalker a lot. Here's hoping. Let's see. Warrington Train Spotter writes, over under 20%. Anakin shows up as a Force ghost in Rise of Skywalker. Well, see, this is a question that's come up a lot. Is Anakin going to show up in this movie? A couple of years ago, I would have said no way Anakin shows up in any of the upcoming Star Wars movies. But then something interesting happened. Hayden Christensen, good Canadian kid, by the way, shows up at Star Wars Celebration and is interviewed on stage, and it gets a warm, wonderful reception from the audience. And that doesn't mean he'll be in the next movie. But man, I got to tell you, it opened up the possibilities. I think it very legitimately opened up the possibilities. Again, I don't think he's going to be in it. I don't think they're going to do that. But it's possible. So you're setting 20%. I'm still going to go under 20. but it's not like 3% or 4%. I would probably go around a good solid 10, 11, 12, maybe even like as high as 14% chance that we do see Anakin show up either as a Force ghost or some other way, shape, or form. Again, a few years ago, I would have said 0. But I think him showing up at Star Wars Celebration a couple years ago changed a lot of things. And that's why before I would have thought not possible. Today, yeah. Today, I think that's something that could possibly happen. All right. Next up, I'm just going to take these off since I don't need to have them on right now. All right. Next question comes to us from Fan of Peanuts, who writes, minus the Canto Bite stuff and Del Toro was wasted. Interesting bit of trivia. Benicio Del Toro was originally going to play Darth Maul. Wow. Really? I have never heard that. Benicio Del Toro was originally supposed to play Darth Maul? I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I've ever heard that. I mean, that could very well be true. I just don't know that I've ever heard that. If true, Fan of Peanuts, that's a really interesting piece of trivia. All right. Fan of Peanuts also writes, unpopular opinion. I prefer The Last Jedi over The Force Awakens. Now, I do feel Rey was better in The Force Awakens. She was so endearing and amazing and pure. JJ handled Rey better slightly. Again, I disagree. I really love The Force Awakens. So I personally prefer The Force Awakens over The Last Jedi, but hey, you're allowed to like The Last Jedi over The Force Awakens. That's perfectly fine. But I will also agree with you that I believe JJ handled Rey a little bit better than the way she was handled. I like the way she was handled in The Last Jedi, but I just preferred the way that JJ handled her. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Okay. Fan of Peanut sends in a couple more and writes, but my all-time favorite character is Luke Skywalker, mine too. So The Last Jedi is on a different level for that reason. I felt Luke embodied at the end what a true Jedi is and what a true Jedi would do. Sacrifice without swinging or attacking. I've had that conversation with people that if you remember the early lessons that Luke learned about what it is being a Jedi, about what Master Yoda taught him about what the Force is used for, never for attack. Luke in The Last Jedi epitomized what a Jedi would do. If possible, he saved lives without actually killing anybody. He found a way to save the lives of everybody who was on Crate, who were in those caves. He saved them all. He bought them all the time they needed to be able to get out of there, while he kept Kylo Ren and the forces of the First Order focused on him and his fast Force projection. And in doing so, sacrificed himself to do it. It was the epitome of the philosophy of the Jedi way. And I think some people miss that. And I'm glad you recognize that. And then also he writes, and most importantly, Luke went out on his own terms, which again is true. Surely that is a part of it as well. Fan of Penis has a lot to say today. Writes in, my order: number 1, Empire; number 2, A New Hope; number 3, Return of the Jedi; number 4, The Last Jedi; number 5, Rogue One; number 6, The Force Awakens; then The Force Awakens, Revenge, then Phantom, way last, Attack of the Clones. Yeah, not unlike my order. See, my order is Jedi first, Empire second, New Hope, but they're all very close. All very, very close. Then The Force Awakens, Rogue One, Solo, Last Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones. That's how and then way, way, way down even further beneath that was the animated Clone Wars movie, which I put even below that. So that's just me. All right. Let's see. Fernman68 sends in a really large super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level, Fernman. Appreciate that. Writes in, part of empathizing or connecting with the hero is seeing them struggle. Luke loses a hand in almost every lightsaber fight. Superman has kryptonite. How is this a good story? I'm trying to like it, but Rey wins every time. Oh, what? What? I'm sorry. Are we completely forgetting that the very first time that Rey encounters Kylo Ren, he takes her out without even having to hit her once? Are we forgetting that? I think, time out. Are we just pretending that didn't happen? That outside of Maz Kanata's castle, she is out alone in the woods, confronts a not shot in the belly at full strength Kylo Ren, And then she squeezes off a couple shots, blah, 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 and then paralyzed, I gotcha, and carries her away just like that? Are we just pretending that didn't happen? That her first encounter with Kylo Ren was utterly with ease, without a drop of sweat, she was easily taken by Kylo Ren? On her knees, she can't even move, she's paralyzed, and he's like, whoosh, blah, unconscious, and carrying her lifeless body, well, she's alive, but carrying her listless body onto the ship and taking her away? Are we all just pretending that didn't happen? Are we just pretending that didn't happen? Now, the next time she confronts Kylo Ren, everybody also forgets that Kylo was literally dying as he was trying to fight her. He was literally dying. He had been shot in the abdomen by a shot from Chewbacca's bowcaster, which we had seen hit other people and send them flying 50 feet across the room. And he was bleeding out. You could see the blood trail. And he's constantly hitting himself. He was literally dying when he tried to fight Rey. Rey, by the way, who has been fighting her whole life. She has literally been fighting in melee combat her whole life. And so facing Kylo Ren now, when he's suffering a shot wound in his abdomen and he's bleeding out and he's dying, yeah, she was able to take him then. Okay. But I just don't understand this thing about everything comes so easy for Rey. The very first time she met Kylo Ren, she got her ass spanked. What are we... and then the next time she faced him, he was dying. Everything's easy for Rey. Come on. Let's not rewrite history, my brothers and sisters in Star Wars fandom. She encountered him the first time, snap of his fingers, she's out cold, takes her away. She lost brutally. And then the next time they met each other, she only was able to stand up to him because he was literally dying as trying to fight her. I mean, so I just don't understand this mentality, this rewriting of history. When we talk about what happened in The Force Awakens between Rey and Kyle, like everybody forgets about this. So I would just remind everybody, when you hear somebody says, everything's so easy for Rey, she just wins at everything. Really? Because, you know, the first time we saw her confront Kylo Ren, she got wiped out. Without him even needing to raise his lightsaber, he just took her out. So, I mean, let's keep that in mind. Let's keep that in mind. I think that's something that's really, really important and key to that discussion. But that's just me. That's just me. Thanks for sending that in for a man. All right. Let's see. The Balance writes, what do you think about this opening scene? Kylo flies to the Outer Rim, walks towards Palpatine on the throne. He kneels and says, Master, I fulfilled your command. Snoke is dead. The First Order is yours. I think that raises a lot of questions, because that would need for us as an audience to forget that even while alone in his room, he's struggling with his allegiance to Snoke versus the tugging of the light side of the Force on him towards empathy for his father. I don't think that can be considered consistent with this scenario you're pointing out. So that's the only problem. See, if there was anything at all in the previous movies to suggest that could have been what was going on behind the scenes, maybe. But we've seen Kylo Ren alone, struggling with his allegiance to Snoke. We never ever got the sense in any of the movies that he was actually there undercover, meant to infiltrating Snoke and take out Snoke. It was something that he struggled with right up until the moment that he did it. Much like he struggled with right up until the moment that he killed Han. So it's a cool sounding fanfic opening for it, but it would raise a lot of questions if they did that, because that just does not make sense with everything else we've seen in the other two movies. So it would be problematic. Again, they would have a whole movie to try to explain why it makes sense, but at least on its surface balance, it seems to me to be pretty problematic. But who knows? There could be a way they could find around it. Okay, let's see here. Anonymous writes, Now my future viewings of Mandalorian will be shattered knowing that Pedro Pascal is not in the suit most of the time. With that said, can we have guest stars in the suit, starting with Gilbert Gottfried? What? I'm wearing this armor. That was a terrible Gilbert Gottfried. I can't do impressions to save my life. I don't know why I said that at all. Again, listen, like I said on the John Campea Show earlier today, I'm perfectly fine. I don't expect, I mean, it doesn't change my opinion knowing that it's not James Earl Jones in the suit. That's perfectly fine. It's just that, I don't know, we've been so obsessed, including me, about, wow, Pedro Pascal's doing such a good job emoting the character's emotions, even though we're not seeing his face. Wow, well done, Pedro Pascal. Only now to find out it was never, or at least a lot of the time, it wasn't Pedro Pascal. So I'm like, oh my God. So I feel a little bit disillusioned, to be honest with you. But, I mean, wouldn't it be neat to find out, though, after the season's over, going, guess what, guys? In episode 2 of The Mandalorian, it was Harrison Ford in the costume. In episode 3, it was Mark Hamill. In episode 4, it was, I don't know, John Boyega. In episode 5, I mean, that would be kind of cool too to find out after the fact. I don't know. I mean, it could be something neat. Could be whatever. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Let's see. Paradox Does Stuff. I love that name. Paradox Does Stuff. Writes, viewer since 2014. Thank you so much, man. Episode 9 score is online. We were just told that a little while ago. Track 2 has a pleasant surprise. No Qui-Gon Jinn quite kind of spoilers. That's what I was worried about. Is Qui-Gon Jinn level kind of spoilers. No Qui-Gon Jinn type spoilers in the song titles either. Love the show. Thank you so much, Paradox, and thanks for the information, guys. Now we all know that we can go find the score and start listening to some good John Williams, probably the last hurrah of John Williams in the Star Wars universe. I think he's hanging up the conductor baton, at least as far as Star Wars goes after this one. So we'll be able to go and get our last hurrah of John Williams doing Star Wars music. Thanks for the heads up on that, Paradox. All right, John Osborne writes, does Anakin Skywalker need to be involved in the end of Palpatine to uphold the prophecy of the Chosen One? Otherwise, the only thing he did to bring balance was kill himself. Again, I addressed this a little bit earlier, and maybe you were a little bit late to the party on this, John. I addressed this earlier. I don't believe, I explained ad nauseum about why that's not the case at all. That's not the case at all. So you're telling me Luke survived, the Empire fell, and decades of New Republic rule in the galaxy was all nothing? Really? All he accomplished was killing himself? None of that other stuff counts? The saving of billions of lives and the fall of the Empire and the establishment of justice in the galaxy and the end of oppression and the establishment of the New Order or of the New Republic for decades, none of that means anything? None of that counts? Again, I liken it unto saying, okay, yeah, in the last issue of Superman, he saved the world, but did he really? Because now there's a new villain. So he didn't really save the world. Well, no, he still saved the world. He still saved the day. It's just that now there's a new challenge. And maybe that new challenge is that Lex Luthor is back, or that Doomsday is back, or Solomon Grundy shows up, or, I mean, I don't know, whatever the new challenge is, that doesn't undermine what was accomplished in the previous issue. Superman still saved the day. He still saved some people's lives, and that was all great. And now there's a new challenge. So I don't believe at all. I don't think you can just discount all the things that happened as a result of Vader throwing the Emperor down that shaft and all the things that accomplished and what it brought about. And it did bring balance to the Force. But again, the prophecy never said that the Chosen One will bring balance to the Force forever and ever and ever, and everybody will be happy for the rest of their lives. And, you know, rabbits will shit out gold bricks for people to have and buy Happy Time chocolates and peanut butter forever and ever. That's not what it said. It said he's going to bring balance to the Force, and he did. And the effects of that lasted for decades. And then a new darkness arisen, even if it was a darkness that they had known before. But it doesn't change the prophecy. That's just my thoughts on that. Okay. Fan of Peanuts writes, let's see. John, why is it that, well, before the Emperor's throne room, Luke already force choked the guard at Jabba's palace? Why are the Last Jedi haters of Luke forgetting that? Oh, no, I think I have this debate with people a lot of time about how you do realize Luke never trained as a Jedi was supposed to train, right? Like, you do know that. He had a few hours on the Millennium Falcon doing some drills with a blast shield. And then just doing that, he was able to utilize the Force to, without a targeting computer, hit a mathematically nearly impossible shot to blow up the Death Star. This kid never even heard of the Force. Never even heard of the Force before that, and suddenly he's blown up the Death Star. Okay. But good for you. According to everything we learned, potential Jedi are found as children and then trained for decades and assigned with a master as a Padawan to continue their training. And their training goes on for decades. And then at some point, decades and decades, they're bestowed the title, "You're now a Jedi Knight." Luke had, what, an hour? And then he went and did, Master Yoda's fantasy Jedi camp for a weekend on Dagobah. I mean, we all forget this. Everybody forgets this. And even before, he's walking up, he's force choking Gamorrean guards. I mean, I just think there's some things people selectively choose not to remember. I mean, that's just me. I think there are things some people choose to selectively not remember, but I don't know. Whatever, that's just me. All right, John Osborne writes, people say that Palpatine has to be in Rise of Skywalker because he ties all 9 together, but Anakin/Vader have been in just as many. That's true, but Vader had made his turn. Right? Vader can no longer be the major antagonist. And for a lot of these stories, the main antagonist, almost equally to the hero, in a lot of different fantasy, becomes the connective tissue in an overall story arc, right? Anakin and Vader, they ended Anakin's story with the conclusion of his story, which is his turning back to the light side. Now, we can get into the argument and the debate about how redeemed he was at that point or not. Robot Chicken does a really great sketch on that. What the hell is he doing here? I mean, it's pretty funny if you haven't seen it. But the Emperor had no such ending, right? While being thrown down the shaft, the real conclusion to his story wasn't really reached, and you can bring him back to become the overall antagonist. So that becomes your more major connective tissue than, say, returning Anakin, which then becomes a new story for Anakin and Vader. Whereas opposed to the Emperor, I would argue that his return is just a continuation of what his overall mission and villainous plan have always been. Unlike Anakin, who made his turn to the light side, I should say, at the end of Return of the Jedi. So I think that's the distinction there, John. I mean, I think there are other ways of looking at it too. I admit, and I concede that there are other ways of looking at it as well, but that's just kind of the way that I've seen it, why one makes sense and one doesn't. But I think there are probably other ways you could look at that to make it more connected, I suppose. All right. Next up, Warrington Train Spotter. I hope Kelly Marie Tran gets more scenes this time in Rise of Skywalker. She is beautiful. And I'll tell you what, Kelly Marie Tran is a beautiful person. I've had a chance to meet her. She is a bag of sunshine. I'm telling you right now, Kelly Marie Tran, I've had the opportunity to meet her and talk to her. She is a bag of sunshine. But that doesn't mean I think that they did her Rose character, any favors with how they used the Rose character in The Last Jedi. I actually thought the way they handled the Rose character and Finn, like the Finn and Rose characters, I didn't think were handled right. Those are a couple of the pieces of weaknesses I thought to that movie. And I really do hope, I mean, more screen time is great, but unless you're giving her better things to do than in The Last Jedi, then it's wasted screen time. You can't just give her screen time for the sake of giving her screen time. Give her screen time with good stuff, meaty stuff for her character to do. Things for her character to do that have impact, that have meaning, that could bring joy to the audience and all that kind of stuff. If you do that, then that's great. Hold a second. My wife is trying to get a hold of me. So let me just write something to her quick here. Doing live show, baby. Call you right back. All right, there. and, ladies and gentlemen, my wife, Ann. So we'll get through the rest of the questions here. Anyway, so don't just give her more screen time for the sake of more screen time. Give her screen time with some more meaty things for her character to do. Or give her limited screen time, but still give her character meaty things to do. Let her have impact this time around. So I think that's the key there. And it couldn't happen to a nicer girl. Again, she's just a big bag of sunshine. All right. Anthony R. writes, a nice father-son moment would be Force Ghost Anakin and Luke finishing off Palpatine once and for all, a big middle finger to Sheev. Hey, listen, you're not alone, Anthony. I have heard that theory given by a number of people. There are a number of people who have had that theory that we're going to not only see, because remember I said, is it going to be Kylo or Rey? I said, neither. I think it might be Luke. Other people have the theory that could be Luke and Anakin as Force Ghosts. But the problem with that, even though I would love to see it, the problem with that is that in Empire Strikes Back, there is the implication that there's a rule with being a Force Ghost. Because Obi-Wan says to Luke, I mean, if you choose to go and face Vader, you need to do it alone. I cannot interfere. I can't interfere. As a Force Ghost, he doesn't say as Force Ghost, but the implied message is, as a Force Ghost, I can't physically get involved in your conflict. So do they throw that out the window? Or is Palpatine like a zombie Palpatine? It's like, well, technically Palpy's back from the dead. And if you're somebody who's been brought back from the dead, you're fair game for us Force Ghosts. We can come in and slice you up. I mean, I don't know. It's going to have to be interesting to see, but it would be pretty cinematic. All right. Final question of the day, guys, and then we'll wrap up today's installment. Revan writes, John, get on this Rise of Skywalker soundtrack. Some very surprising and beautiful scores. Hey, I'm having people write, dude, I'm on it as soon as we're done the show. Believe me, I'm right on that as soon as we're done the show because you guys are already sounding pretty excited about it. That's getting me excited about it. All right, guys, that will do it for this week's installment of Dark Side, Light Side. Listen, again, on behalf of Kristian and myself, our apologies for the technical problem. Do not worry. No such thing will happen again. We will get this straightened out, especially since the next time we do Dark Side, Light Side, 1 week from today, Kristian and I will both have seen Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Obviously, it will be no spoilers. We will not spoil anything on that show. But the next time we do this show, we will both have seen the movie. And oh my God, I can't believe it's here. It's a week away. I just can't believe it's already here. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for being here, for making this a part of your week. A special thanks to all of you guys who sent in questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about and some good deep things to think about as well, but also because you supported the channel and this show while you were doing it. And all of us around here, thank you very much for that. All right, guys. That will do it for me for this installment. On behalf of myself and the unfortunately absent Kristian Harloff, we thank you very much. That'll do it for now. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.